Welcome to Zkast, everybody. I'm Z.S. Caraval from ZK Research. I'm your host, as always. We have a really exciting topic today. We're going to be talking with Robin Olds from Cisco about rural broadband. Before we get going, though, I do want to give a shout out to eWeek, my media partner. All Zcasts are done in conjunction with the eWeek eSpeaks program. Now, as I mentioned before, I'm joined by Robin Olds. His title is Business Development Manager, Innovation and Transformation America's Service Provider at Cisco. Whew, I did that in one breath, Robin. That is a long title. Tell us what the heck you do at Cisco.
Well, ZS, I really talk to service providers and help them look at their business and transform it, right? Like try to help them either create service creation, offers that they're trying to look to offer to their customers where they're providing value. Or in this case, what we're talking about today is what Cisco's Rural Broadband Innovation Center is all about. So,
okay, now to me, rural broadband, we talk about a lot of different issues in this country, and it's really important for a lot of things. The least of which is work from home. So let's talk first a little bit about the work from home to trend, what you're expecting, what your service provider customers are seeing.
Yeah, that's a good question. So it all started, right, with the pandemic. The pandemic really changed the way we work now, and I doubt it's going to go back to the way it was pre-pandemic. So what's happened was it really highlighted the need for businesses not only to consider a work from home policy, they're also considering return to work, but now more of a hybrid work environment. So, at the end of the day, what we're talking about is regardless of where you work, it needs to be digital, secure, and inclusive. So that we're working from anywhere by enabling a hybrid workforce and transforming into hybrid workspaces. What does that mean for service providers? Well, that means that broadband internet connectivity is more important than it ever has been. An example of this is my neighbor just moved from Colorado, and he's working remote. And he's, him and his wife are both working for firms back in Colorado, and I'm in South Carolina. And they are, needing bandwidth connectivity. And so, I was recommending the local provider down here that got me the bandwidth that I needed for video, because it's businesses really need that person-to-person contact. And for service providers, they need to increase that bandwidth. And from a Cisco's perspective, we're trying to really help our service providers, and provide the connectivity that is needed for these remote workers. And we're changing the economics of the internet, right? We're really looking from our Acacia acquisition, where we're providing 400 gig optics that mean a smaller footprint, which allows you to do more. And then we're also showing how a small internet service provider can have the same hardware as a very large tier one service providers that have 30 million residential subscribers, but they're using our flexible consumption model that allows them to get into that hardware, but at a much lower cost price point by us scaling back the software and making it more flexible for them. Interesting. Yep. Sorry. Go ahead.
We talk about this as being a work from home trend, but it's really a do everything from home trend. We're educating kids at home. We're doing telehealth more. Financial services things are done. We're doing legal over the network. So it's not just work from home; it's everything at home, and that is raise the value of the network, correct? And it seems like all these things we're trying to do, we can't do without a really good quality network.
Yeah, the network is extremely important now, especially since the pandemic highlighted that need for faster broadband speeds. But I'm sure your audience out there knows of somebody during the pandemic that lives in rural America where their children had to learn from home, but where they had limited bandwidth. An example of this is one of my engineers. His niece had to go down to the local McDonald's to get Wi-Fi access. She lived in rural West Virginia, and really it was in the winter months, in the March, April timeframe, where she was still learning but working, learning from home. And she just didn't have that broadband speed that she needed to be able to do the type of calling that they were doing from a video calling perspective.
That was it. In this country, we talk a lot about economic recovery and where the growth is going to come from. And it seems to me that part of educating from home is creating a quality so we can get more people proficient in STEM, right? Now, I'm looking at some STEM data that I'll actually show in the Zcast. And when you look at the average countries, the U.S. is well below it, right? I'm okay below being countries like some of the Nordic countries and things, because they put everybody there as an engineer, right? But then when you start looking down, Slovenia, Denmark, Czech Republic. Czech Republic hasn't been around that long, and they're well ahead of the U.S. as far as STEM goes. And it seems to be that our ability to educate people at home is dependent on the network. Yet there's so many parts of this country that don't have good quality programs. And when I met you last, we talked about the state of rural broadband. What the heck is going on in this country with rural broadband? What is the state of it right now?
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, the U.S. government has been making great strides in the past 3 administrations, where they're providing funding to bridge that digital divide. Today, there's over $38 billion in funding that's available right now at this moment in time that a lot of service providers have applied for or are applying for. And then there's about $67 billion in additional funding that's coming down, and there may be more after that. It seems like every time I turn around, I read about a new government program or bill that's being proposed that might get passed and might provide additional funding. But we hope, that many of these service providers and even new entrants to the market are looking at this as an opportunity to provide broadband access to these rural areas to really make a more inclusive future for all. And from Cisco's perspective, really our access methods are open, right? We want open access. So many people are looking at it from a fixed wireless access method, a fiber to the home access method, or even a mobile network like on a cellular data, like a hotspot type connectivity perspective. And, that's really where it gets highlighted, is that the U.S. is trying to address this. The best example of this I could give you is we have a case study on one of our service provider accounts, True Vista. They're a service provider that's located in Chester, South Carolina. It's a high growth area for Charlotte. If you live in Charlotte, you may move to Chester because it's, you want a lower cost of living. But one of the counties had 1,700 homes that had inadequate bandwidth, and they contacted True Vista, and True Vista worked in a public-private partnership format with the county to go after a USDA reconnect grant. If True Vista were to apply and do the fiber build out to these 1,700 homes, it was going to cost them $12 million, but they received a $9 million USDA reconnect grant, which allowed them to build out that broadband connectivity. So this really provided a lot of value to the community, and it showed a partnership between the county and True Vista and how they work together to address this.
All right, thanks. And while you gave some kudos to the last 3 administrations, I'm going to say our government's not doing enough. We need a national broadband policy like so many other countries have. This is a soapbox of mine that I've had for a while. It's embarrassing that we don't have it, being the most technologically advanced country in the world. And if there's any government officials watching this, or if you're watching this, send this to your government official. We need a national broadband policy. And then we need policies that our programs aren't so hard to fill out the paperwork. I've heard that's an issue too, but that's an aside. Now, I know in an effort to help some of these service providers at Cisco, and I got to tour this, it was pretty interesting. Cisco has created a rural broadband center in its facility at RTP in North Carolina. So can you walk me through what that is and what its purpose is?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's a $20 million investment for Cisco in Morrisville, which is part of the Research Triangle Park. And what we've done is really created a rural broadband innovation center. It contains a showcase and a lab. The showcase is where we bring customers in and talk them through the technologies. And then we have a hands-on lab where they can look at some of the solutions that we're talking about, whether that's automation or infrastructure as code, or even looking at security solutions or TDM to IP, or segment routing, and Silicon One and the faster ASICs that we're doing. But our goal of the Innovation Center is really to address the digital divide by investing in rural broadband innovation, and for our broadband service providers so that they can see firsthand how our state-of-the-art solutions would work in their own environment. But some of that, even we bring in third-party solutions to show them how that would, again, how we would demonstrate that open access, whether that's passive optical networking or private 5G or even 4G LTE, to show them, the different access methods that they can bring as a solution for this.
Yeah, and I think we're actually going to roll a quick video here that hopefully walks us through that. So we'll do that now. Now, Robin, I know that I think one of the other purposes here is you had talked about the acquisition made at Cisco of Acacia. You also bought, I think, Lexterra before that. That building a next gen network today isn't as simple as just upgrading your old network to the new thing like we used to do. Modernized networks today are quite different than ones of previous generation, correct? And I think part of the purpose here is also to help some of the smaller providers that don't have the technical skills to be able to use some of these new technologies. Is that correct?
That's correct. That is absolutely correct. Yes. So what we're doing is really basically using Cisco's validated designs to modernize these rural network architectures and really talk about open access again. Fixed wireless access or fiber to the home, whether it could be cable too, right? We have a lot of cable providers out there. And then mobile network providers. I really didn't define what a broadband service provider is, but in essence, it could be a cable company, a telco, electrical co-op. It could be a new WISP or wireless internet service provider. Anybody that's providing broadband access, we want to bring them to this center so we can walk them through our converged software-defined network transport, which is our way of showing how we would provide this service across the end-to-end segment routed backbone to reduce cost and complexity out of their network and really help them with their subscriber management. And in some essences, we want to talk about the routed optical networking and how we reduce the layers of complexity from optical to PON to route switch on the backbone. We can really shrink that down and we have a better CapEx or OpEx efficiency there. But and on top of that, my biggest thing that I think is pretty exciting is that we demonstrate automation using Crossworks, our Crossworks suite software to show them really how this can be put in place. And even if you're a small provider, you can afford automation. It does not replace jobs. A lot of people worry that there's going to be somebody's job going to be gone, but we're looking at actually making sure that when you implement a change, it's implemented correctly so that the network doesn't go down. These networks are so demanding now. If everybody's working from home and doing business, it's hard to take an outage in the middle of the day these days for service providers. So you have to have an automated network so that you can also not only have it redundant, but have it resilient. And that's our key to winning a lot of business.
Yeah, no, this isn't just a showcase for new Cisco technology, right? Service providers can actually use this to help them build an next-gen network faster. Is that correct? And can you walk us through how?
Yeah, that is right. That is again, what we demonstrate with the labs is we show them hands-on how they could do this today. That's right.
Okay, well, I think it's great that Cisco put that kind of money into it. I know, creating equality and an inclusive future has been a big mission for Cisco from Chuck Robbins all the way down. And so what kind of impact do you think this can have on Cisco's mission or purpose now of powering an inclusive future?
Well, we know off of some research data from the Purdue research that, there's a percentage of U.S. adults living in rural areas that have less access to home broadband and other devices like, just smartphones and tablets and desktops. And, if you can make the assumption that if you bring broadband to these rural areas, that this is not only going to help the economy, but it's also going to benefit society, right? You're going to be able to work from anywhere. You're going to have people that are going to be able to buy from you remotely instead of going into maybe, having to drive all the way in for a store. But Cisco's really addressing the digital divide by investing in the Rural Broadband Innovation Center for broadband service providers so that they can see firsthand how our state-of-the-art solutions work in their own environment. And by showing them how to build it, we hope to make an impact on creating an inclusive future for all. And that's really, how we're doing this.
Yeah, well, certainly, I think your former CEO, John Chambers, was once quoted as saying that equality in the world is created from education. And I think the internet and education creates equality across the globe or something like that. And so the first step in that would be creating the equality in this country, right? And Jitu Patel who runs the collaboration and security group at Cisco, actually talks about the importance of broadband and just creating more opportunity. So I think it's great that Cisco's doing that, Robin. Is there anything else you want to add before we wrap up here?
Just that, please go check us out. We'll probably put a couple, links. One is Cisco.go/rural broadband. And then there's also a blog that gives in-depth detail into what our Rural Broadband Innovation Center is about. You can actually search on Robin Olds on the Cisco Rural Broadband Innovation Center if you look for it that way. But thank you, Zkast, for having me. I really appreciate the time today.
All right. Well, I'll make sure those links are down below. Don't forget to click to subscribe. And on behalf of Robin Olds from Cisco and Zkast Caravelli, your host for Zkast, thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.